Welcome, everyone. We'll be getting started in just a few moments. Welcome, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. We're so pleased to welcome our guests this evening. We're here to discuss Infinitum, an Afrofuturist Tale by Tim Fielder, with our guest and good friend, Jerry Craft. First, for those of you who are brand new, I'll tell you a little bit about who we have joining us today. We are Lost City Books, a used, new, and rare bookstore located in Adams Morgan, DC. We are run by a close-knit team of some of what I think are DC's coolest kids, including myself. Artists, educators, musicians, writers, and of course, avid readers, all coming together to create this unique environment and curate the eclectic selection of books that you also enjoy. I am your host for tonight. My name is Shady, and like I said, I'm so pleased to be here. Tim Fielder is an illustrator, concept designer, cartoonist, and animator born in Tupelo, Mississippi. Let me know if I said that right.
Tupelo.
In Clarksdale, Mississippi. He has a lifelong love of visual Afrofuturism, pulp entertainment, and action films. He holds other Afrofuturists such as Samuel R. Delany, Octavia Butler, Pedro Bell, and Overton Lloyd as major influences. All really great choices. Can't wait to hear a bit more about that. Jerry Craft is the New York Times bestselling and Newbery Medal winning author of the graphic novel New Kid. His second graphic novel, Class Act, publishes on October 6, 2020, so that's out. Craft is also the creator of Mama's Boys, an award-winning comic strip, which won the African American Literary Award 5 times. He is a co-founder of the Schomburg Center's annual Black Comic Book Festival. He received his BFA from the School of Visual Arts. And I'm not going to spoil it too much, but I will tell you a little bit about Infinitum. In Infinitum, King AjA Oba and Queen Lewa are revered across the African continent for their impressive political and military skills. Yet the future of their kingdom is in jeopardy, for the royal couple do not have an heir of their own. When the king kidnaps his son born to a concubine, Obinrin, she curses AjA with the gift of immortality. After enjoying long, wonderful lives both, Queen Lewa and the crown prince die naturally, leaving the ageless, bereaved King AjA heartbroken and alone. Taking advantage of AjA's vulnerability, enemy nations rise to power and kill the king, or so they think. King AjA Oba survives the fatal attack, finally realizing the bitter fruit of Obinrin's curse. Ooh, I can't wait to talk about this. All right. Without further ado, I'd like to welcome our guests for the evening. Welcome, everybody.
Thank you. I'm wonderful.
You,
Tim, how are you?
I'm doing good, Mr. Jerry Craft. How are you doing, sir?
I'm wonderful. Look what I got here.
Hey, man, guess what? I have one too.
Nice. We're matching. All right, Shady, can we take it away? Do you have any questions you want to start Tim off with, or should I just start grilling them?
Take it away. And I'll remind anyone watching right now that you're able to ask our guests tonight. You can ask questions by leaving a comment right below the live stream that you're watching right now.
All right.
No questions are off limits, so go for it.
All right. Well, I know none of mine are going to be off limits.
Oh, Lord.
So, Tim, let's start off. So, Afrofuturism,
Mm.
for those that may not be familiar with that term, please explain it.
Afrofuturism is the modality, the form that arises when you collide Afrocentricity, science fiction, technology, social mores and ideas, and you fuse that together. And in the heat and friction, that which comes up is Afrofuturism. And Afrofuturism can be applied, in my case, to graphic novels and comics, like in your case, you're a graphic novelist. It can be applied to film, Black Panther. It can be applied to fashion. It can be applied to politics. It can be applied to being a Black person in the world, just wanting and needing to survive. That's what Afrofuturism is.
Okay. And why is that important to you? Not just because you make a living, but why is it important to the world, do you think?
Oh, man. Briefly, I have been involved with UNESCO and this futures projections agency called N Square. And I've been in futures, it's called foresight training. And I've been training now for the last 9 months. And taking my drawings and literally designing ideas. Like, for example, we're dealing with police brutality. I'm creating a benign weapon that a police officer can use that can allow for fairer policing, but also reduce and eliminate fatalities. So I am literally able to take my drawings as it applies to the Black experience for something that can be proposed for a real agency that can affect people in the world. That's what Afrofuturism is to me on one side. The other side, hey, Black folks in spaceships. That's dope. You don't get a better idea than that.
You know what? So one of my favorite stories, and I hope to give it justice, as you're aware, the ECBOC, East Coast Black Age of Comic Convention, years ago, a bunch of us after the convention went out to dinner with Lieutenant Uhura,
Michelle Nichols.
And she told the story, and again, I hope to do it justice, that she was on the set of Star Trek, and they're like, hey, you have someone here to see you. And she's like, okay, probably a fan who wants a picture or an autograph. And she comes out, and it is none other than Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
It's Martin Luther King, yes.
And he apparently had heard that she was going to leave Star Trek to take a job as like Peggy on Mannix or something like that. And he begged her, said, you cannot leave here
and do it
because you show us that there are Black folks in the future.
Right.
And when you look at so many other things, the classics, the Blade Runners, we're not around. So when he brought it to her attention like that, she stayed, and thank goodness she did.
I wouldn't be making the type of work I did without her input. And that's something I also want to push back on. In our conversation, you have claimed that you're not an Afrofuturist. You actually are. And I'll explain to you how.
Okay.
You have pioneered a space for a Black creator in the emerging graphic novel environment. You're like the one. You're like Neo in the Matrix, right? And so as a result of that, there are all of these, not just younger cartoonists, but they're actually contemporary cartoonists. You're like Muad'Dib and Dune. You know what I mean? You're actually showing. I'm serious. I'm dead serious. You're showing the idea that it can be done. And that is Afrofuturist.
Okay. See, I always think of it as I don't produce work like this. You know,
Oh, you
my
produce
stuff is
work like
contemporary.
that.
Right, absolutely. But you're right, conceptually, as you and I have met over the years at the Schomburg,
Right.
you know, where I think that there is more of a concept. Like that was so important in so many ways because it showed our fans how important they were.
Yes.
It's like, you know, but it also taught them, listen, if you want more of this,
Yes.
you've got to support us. You have to buy our books.
Right. Now, let me offer a little bit to the audience. I'll be very brief. So Jerry, who crazy, started the Black Comic Book Day at Human Bookstore, right? Then a year later, he started along with John Jennings, Deirdre Hallman, and Jonathan Gales at the Schomburg. And this thing, when it started, I think the first year, how many did y'all have? Like 700,000?
Yeah, it's like 500-600 people. Yeah.
Now Jerry is single-handedly responsible for fire codes being violated every year, thousands of people.
We had like 15,000 people one year.
It's like it gave us permission, man. It gave us permission, and that is it's something I've had to accept myself. And you know, we'll get into infinitum. Don't worry, folks, we'll get into that. But Afrofuturism, I've had to learn, is a way of life. It's not just, you know, doing books or making products. It's seeing a Barack Obama as an Afrofuturist who would be crazy enough to think that they could be a Black man and be president. He did it. And now my children, your children, they'll never think that that's not possible. That is Afrofuturist.
Right. Right. I know, because in my kids' life, they had only known a Black president, you know,
which is crazy, you know what I mean?
First years of their lives. I'm like,
same for mine.
Yeah.
It's like they're in their formative 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years. For 8 years, boom, there's Barack Obama.
All right. Now, as far as infinitum, now your life has changed drastically in the last few years, because now, like the king, after doing this, the protagonist in your book, you are on your way to being immortal, Tim Fielder.
You know, it's so weird because you know, I won't speak for you, I'll only speak for myself. I'm a middle-aged man. I'm not young, but I'm not old. I'm not right in the middle. And as a result, however, though, we don't come back. I don't come back from injuries as quickly as I used to.
Got it.
And what that means is that I am thinking about my legacy. And I put so much time into this book. It hurt me to do. My arms began to experience what I would classify as some sort of nerve damage, because I didn't want a person to read my book and to be able to perceive that it was done with ease. I wanted them to see the book and to know that I put my body into it.
Yes. Well, the pain that you
body into it
is that you were making.
Hey man, don't tell those kind of secrets, man. That's behind the scenes stuff. Yes, it was something I wanted. People that look like me, like you, like Shady. I wanted folks to see themselves in the book, but to be fully rendered. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah. It's like that was important to me to be able to do. And when you do it that way, you feed into the stream, hopefully the aspiration, into work that will go into the future. It will live beyond me. That was my intent.
Okay, well, it's absolutely beautiful.
Thank you.
And, you know, I mean, these are all like really fully rent, every single page after page, and the detail and the color. What made you even think you could pull this off?
Ah, man. I had a conversation with our mutual friend, Stacey Robinson.
Okay.
And he came over to my home when I was working on it. And, you know, the thing about graphic novels, as we both know, is that for the audience, in the comic book industry, where Superman and Batman and Spider-Man are so, there's a style, there's a house style of how things can look. Yes. But and this is also for something for folks who are interested in being in the graphic novel space. In the graphic novel industry, styles are all over the place. You can have this story and New Kid can all exist in the same graphic novel section. Absolutely. So you have styles all over. Some styles are rough, some styles are really loose. My style, I wanted to do something that was painted. And Stacy, I remember he was looking at me, he was like, yo, man, why are you doing those drawings so detailed like that? It's it smells me like ego. And I told him, you darn right it is.
Absolutely.
I said, you're darn right it is. I said, because we deserve to see ourselves in epic stories and depict it in an epic way.
Sounds like ego. I might have to give Stacy a call.
Yeah, Stacy, we going, Stacy has his issues, but no, that's I'm just joking. Stacy Robinson, by the way, is a good friend who wears his book here. You guys will know him. He did Across the Tracks. That's the one that's really been blowing things up lately. Also from the Afrofuturist wing, Megascope, with our good friend John Jennings, who founded the Schaumburg Black Comic Book Day. I have all their books there, and Megascope specializes in speculative storytelling above and about Black people.
Right. Now, I know when I did, before I even handled New Kid, even tried to tackle it, I did a practice. I practiced on Mama's Boys. Right, because when I looked at the stuff that these 250-page graphic novels, I was like, that's a lot of work. So could I do a 250-page graphic novel? And so I took my Mama's Boys books, which had always been black and white, and just kind of like anthologies, right, collections of comic strips,
right,
and turned it into a 96-page comic book, a graphic novel. Because I figured if I could do a 96-page comic,
right,
then eventually I could do a 250-page comic.
Right.
Did you ever get like halfway through or a third of the way through and go, oh man, maybe I need to rethink this because it was such a huge undertaking? Or did you just know that you were gonna do it regardless?
You're literally the first person to ask me that question. No, I got about a quarter of the way through. It didn't hit me at the halfway point. It was much earlier. It was like a quarter of the way, and I went, what have I done? Because I knew, oh no, look, man, that's the job.
Right.
That's the job. That's the job. For those folks who have aspirations to do this, you do what you must do. That's the job. The job is, if you know you have to do so much amount of work, then you just have to do the work. It's not pretty. And no one said it was going to be easy. And once you understand that, you begin to incorporate the concept of labor into your life.
Yes.
And labor is actually fulfilling. Now, if I could just apply that to my workout routine, I'll be much better. But in terms of the graphic novels, that has been, it inspires you and keeps you working when you're tired.
Right. And that's one of the things where I always like talking to you on the phone, because
which I greatly appreciated, my friend.
But it's always about the work, whether it is the actual drawing, the writing, the redrawing, the rewriting, and then the promotion. It's all work, and it's like this brotherhood of pain, and now we don't do painful books, right, but the pain that goes into it, is just like, you can't, like, I have this guy I know that is always like, hey, I want to talk to you about being a writer, because I want to do what you do. I'm like, well, have you written something yet? Well, no, but I want to talk to you first. I'm like, then you're not a writer. Because if you're a writer, you come to me and say, look, I've got 800 stories that I've written, how do I get published, but not how do I start, because it's just a labor of love and just stuff. And I know you understand that. Yeah. And then when I look through these pages,
thank you,
which I was fortunate enough to get an advanced reader copy because I did a cover blurb, one of the first cover blurbs I'd ever done, but I was proud to be able to do that.
Well, that's the thing. It's like I was so grateful that you did the cover blurb for me. It meant a lot because it meant that, it's gonna be with it's like we come from the same community. There's this, for those folks who know, there's this community called the Black Age of Comics, where it's a tradition of Black cartoonists who you often see them at the Schomburg, you see them at Ekbak and different Black comic book cons all over the country. And but although you were there, you're now very much a mainstream graphic novelist, swimming alongside Raina Telgemeier and all those folks. So to be able to get that that cover blurb to me meant a lot, because it meant that you were pulling me along. I know that's weird to say, but it's true. And I thank you for that. And I'm waiting to get that opportunity to do the same thing for someone else, because that's what you're supposed to reach back.
Right. So my blurb, and when a friend asks you, so if someone else asks, you can also tell your agent, well, tell them I'm busy, or I didn't really like it, or whatever. But a friend asks, is like, uh-oh, okay, come on, Tim, make me happy.
And what if the book sucks?
Right, make me happy, Tim. And I read it, and every word is true. An amazing tale of one man's odyssey from African king to ruler of the stars, told with breathtaking visuals. Infinitum is epic in every word, engrossing, powerful, intelligent, cinematic.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. And I felt that it really hit those points. I was really appreciative of it, because I come from a family of filmmakers. All of my siblings are filmmakers. And I'm I'm not the holdout. I'm actually doing film stuff now, which we'll get into. But it is a very, very interesting experience to know that I can take that thing that Stanley Kubrick, that George Lucas, that Julie Dash, and put that in my work, but tell the type of stories that I want to do. Big, sprawling epics like Kurosawa, I wanted to do that, but with Black people in it, but to do something that was expansive enough to appeal to any ethnicity. That's what I wanted to do.
Okay, so here's one that I hadn't planned to ask, but I just thought of it when you said that.
Right.
Are people ready for it? Have people been ready for it so far?
Well, it's something you and I have talked about. But I will say this, the beauty of, and I'll be very brief with this part, the beauty of New Kid is that it fits very comfortably in the pretty well-established middle grade graphic novel space. But it does its radicalism within that space.
Yes.
Just by what it is.
Absolutely.
My area, when it comes to mainstream comics, it hasn't really existed. Yeah, you have it in indie comics, Jason Reeves, the Machindos,
right,
those type of folks who we've been doing at Maddie's Rocket. I was in the indie space. So we've done it for several years, but on the mainstream, Big Five, HarperCollins, that level, that hasn't been done. So it is the first original Afrofuturist graphic novel from a Big Five corporation in history. And that is, I'm trying to figure out the word, terrifying.
Yeah.
But at the same time, and it's something that's why I have to call you from time to time. I have to build that industry, and building that industry, for those folks who don't know, I was telling Jerry not long ago, I've done, since the book was launched in January to now, about 90 events. I'm going to do 90 more because it's my job. I've been given this great opportunity to get my work out into the public. And that means I have to work hard to build the industry, to build the market for what I'm doing. And, when a place like Law City Books says, hey, Tim, would you like to come and talk? Yes. Yes, Melba's, yes, I'll do it. Because That's what's required. That's the job. You make the book, then you market the book while you're making the next book.
Right. Now, with New Kid, I have been very fortunate with the response that I've gotten. Initially, though, before kind of validation, there was a very different Black response versus the white response. You know, and I'm wondering if with this, you know, now I know the Black response is like, oh my God, I've never seen this.
Yes.
Brother, thank you for showing us something like a 2001 Space Odyssey that you never see with people who look like us. Now, was everybody happy, or did you like kind of go out of your place, so to speak?
Dang, Jerry, I thought this was going to be a softball interview. Okay. So, and this is why people comment, because they need to know. All right. So when it comes to, I'll deal on the micro level and then the macro level, and I'll answer your question. So on the micro level, it is, I am overjoyed to say that Infinitum has been critically acclaimed. The reviews I have are absolutely ridiculous. And though I did not pay anybody to do that, they have done it. I've been told the biggest interview I got was from like the Comics Journal. The guy had me crying in the car downstairs when alternate side street parking, right? I was crying. That's it. So I have been, from the comics industry, I've been really, it's been really, really incredible. In terms of media, like I said, the only way you get 90 events is that you seek out and people talk, and they allow you to come in and talk about what you do. So when it comes to that, on the macro level, that's been great. On the micro level, people are still checking it out. The Black community, in terms of our fandom type community, they've been rabid about Infinitum. They like it a lot. It's still early days yet. It's still early days. That's why I now have a better perception of the life cycle of a book. I was talking with my friend Nalo Hopkinson, who is one of the great science fiction authors out there, Grandmaster, a sister, and she's a gem. And she was telling me that the interest in these books come in waves. She said 1 second it's there, then it dies, then it comes back up, and that keeps repeating itself. So I would say that the larger white audience is still finding the book. The larger Black audience is still finding the book. It's in the fandom area, both white and Black, where I'm starting to get penetration. So I'm still working. I'm continuing to work. And with that, it's like for those who don't know, Carnegie Hall, which is the big cultural institution that Elmer Bernstein is having the Afrofuturism Festival that's sponsored by Carnegie Hall, and it goes March and February of 2022. So I am grateful to say that I will be participating in it. So I have to, and the company has to put even more, just when you think you can take a break. I remember you telling me when your book was released, you worked really hard and you thought, okay, I'm done. And then you hit the summer and all of a sudden it kept picking up and it hasn't stopped. So that's what's been happening. So now with the Carnegie Hall show, with all of these cultural partners in New York City, that's what's starting to happen.
Here's why I think that the books are cyclical, and you tell me what you think. Initially, there is someone who kind of breaks the mold.
Right.
Okay. As you said, I did with New Kid, as you're doing. And then publishing is not ready because you and I both have 30 years of rejection letters,
In my case, I didn't even get that many rejection letters.
Right. Oh yeah. I got form letter.
Right.
I still have.
Right.
And if they took the time to write a note at the bottom, it was like, hey, what is this? Don't be sending us this.
Right.
You know, so it was depressing.
Mm-hmm.
So I had given up on ever being traditionally published
Mm-hmm.
from 1997 to 2014.
Mm-hmm.
So a long time. I was like, this isn't for me. So you have someone that breaks through.
Mm-hmm.
And then I feel like publishing is like, wow,
Mm-hmm.
these books can make money. And it's like, who do we know who's Black? And they pull people, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's not you or me that's working 17 hours a day and is going to do it even if you have to self-publish it,
Mm-hmm.
or even if you have to print one copy
Right.
and just send it around or whatever. You have people that they pay to kind of emulate what we do. And then each person that does that, it kind of gets watered down a little bit. And then by the end, they're not really doing as well because they don't have that drive and determination of a Tim Fielder. Right. And then it's like, oh, see, these books don't sell.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's because you didn't follow infinitum with something on that same level.
I'm going to say this. Oh man, wow, Jerry. I'm going to say this. It is so important that we set a standard.
Yes.
And when I say standard, I don't mean that a book has to look and work in a specific style. I'm saying in every industry, right? Let's say the aircraft industry.
Right.
There is a standard. You must be able to take the plane off in the air. You must be able to fly it safely and land it. That's the standard. Mm-hmm. And some people can be really, really fantastic pilots. Some of them can just be okay, so-so pilots. But you have to be able to take off and land safely. So that's the standard. I can't necessarily, and I'm not necessarily interested in policing what else is coming. My job is to make sure, and it is frankly a heavy enough weight in and of itself. I got to make sure every book that I do is good.
Right.
And the reason why I say that is because there's someone else out there who aspires to do what I'm doing, both young and old. They need to know, if you're going to do it, you got to do it like this. And you have to continue to crunch because that's your job. That's the job. Now, the other thing I realized, just as you're talking about the industry, is that this has applications not only to graphic novels, but to film. You have to do your best every time. Try to aspire to do your best. And certain things I can control, certain things I can't. Yeah, you want your company to rah, 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 rah. You want them to get behind you, and they do what they can. These people are inundated with other books, COVID, which has been, I think you've been so blessed because when you came out, there was no COVID. When I came out, there was like COVID was at its highest point. Mm-hmm. So that's why I'm on what I call a perpetual book tour. It never ends. It just keeps going. So that has been my objective.
One of the things that I have loved is that I am seeing my friends who have been in the trenches. So
Jamar Nicholas.
So you coming right after me, mm-hmm. and now knowing that Jamar Nicholas is doing Leon Protective the Playground.
With Scholastic coming out real soon.
Yep. So there's a lot of those guys. So I'm very confident that this will be a much longer wave. Mm-hmm. So now listen, can you show
yes,
an image and talk about, starting from the beginning, what it's about and maybe your creative process?
I will show that by pulling up the PDF, and let me know if you guys can see that. Can you guys see that?
Yep, sure can.
Which is great. So, I love what you're asking me because you're forcing me to dig, and I appreciate that.
Good.
So this is the cover. Now, I'm going to get into the rest of the book, but one thing I want people to know as I do this book, this particular sample of this cover, I did over 40 different variants of the cover. Just arrive at this one. And
wow.
you have to. That's the job. This is for my boys, Jacob and Max, who I love them. They kept me on point. And you can see here how it starts. Now, you may ask why. It was a reviewer who asked, okay, is it really a graphic novel? It's like one panel a page. Like, yes, because when I did this book, I like to play around with the format of comics. And I like to experiment in such a way to where I'm telling a story, but it doesn't have to be told in the traditional 9 panels a page. I'm saying I'm going to do 1 panel a page, but I'm going to paint the hell out of each page. So you
what
will
kind of question is it really a graphic novel?
Well, but I appreciate that. I appreciate that because frankly, Infinitum is a hybrid storyboard, graphic novel, and painting, picture book. It's a fusion of those things. I consider myself as a cartoonist. I try my best to push the medium forward, not just in terms of the written narrative, but also in terms of the visual narrative. So when you see that image, I want you to think you're looking at an image from a film.
Yep.
Right? You're looking at something as big as Greg Toland, who shot Citizen Kane. I want you to see those dogs and think, wow, those dogs are vicious. Wow, how much money did they spend on this film? Oh my goodness, this is a dope comic. I want you to experience all those things. This is the other thing I needed to establish, because this book, YA kids can really do not allow middle grade kids to read this book. It'll give them nightmares, right? YA can get into it, and adults, obviously. But I wanted to establish very much from the beginning that this was a book that dealt with adult themes, but dealt, action, adventure, with like the wife, Lewa. You can see her there. It's so important that I show this Black woman who is not martial in her skills. She is politically strategic in her skills. I wanted to show that. I wanted to show a Black woman with dark skin, a Black woman who was every much as beautiful as, of course, I'm not the greatest artist in the world. I'm okay, but I wanted to. I wanted to aspire. Let me
go
say
back.
this.
Go back.
All right. I'm the baddest artist on the planet. Okay, I'm great. I'm great, and I did this. He keeps giving. I didn't know he's gonna bust me in public like that. Anyway, so the point is, right. So I wanted this woman to look like Cicely Tyson, who's one of the most beautiful women in the world, right?
Yep.
I wanted that. I wanted when she's crying here, I want you to see that tear going down the side of her face, but I want that afro to kind of go back to, it's a partly bald. So I'm pulling from these different societies.
Tim, I don't see that tear come down. I feel that tear coming down my cheek.
Oh, really? Okay, well, there you go then. So yes, that is what but I also, this is where the word captions come in. It's like, it's still a funny book. It's still a funny book. That's what I want people to know. I want something that feels dense and rendered, but it's still a comic. It's still a sequential story told visually.
You know what I've never done, which I'm going to force myself to do in the third New Kid, is a like monochromatic, like how some of your images are. I am going to force myself to do that because I love looking at it, but I've never had the guts to try to pull it off.
Well, the thing is about sequential episodes is that there's always a new book coming down the pipe. So yeah, do it for the third book. And also, I find we had mentioned Machindo. There's another brother, Gray Williams, and I'm mentioning them now, who are visual Afrofuturists, James Eugene. They're visual Afrofuturists, and they do fully rendered work, right? And they've been in the game, as long or longer than I have. And the way they depict Black characters in science fiction scenarios, I wanted, I fall in that same vein, I want to do stories like that. It's like the side of his shoulder here. That's very important to me, you know? But then we have the break between the image and then the narration. This is where editing was really, really important because they wanted to know more about the thought process of the characters. And this is where the story kind of bridges the chasm between the graphic novel format and the prose format. Very important.
Yep, and that is the turning point there.
That is the turning point. Just for those guys who need to know, I'm a digital artist. I work completely digital. I am a 3D artist, meaning I model environments in 3D. So for example, this environment here, where Oba is feeling sad because of the loss of his family, that is 100% drawn and painted in the computer. However, that image, the backgrounds there are actually 3D objects that I rendered and painted to look like an illustration. So one of the things I do as an artist is it is my objective to use as many different tools in the digital arsenal with the objective of looking completely analog.
Wow.
Yes, all right. I just released that little behind the scenes. The objective is for you guys, and there's a lot of digital artists out there who do this. If you can get your work to the point where you use all these digital tools, but it doesn't feel digital, then you're really onto something. That's what I feel. Of course, there's some digital artists out there like a David Dennis, guys, heavily influenced by anime, but his stuff is just elegant and beautiful. So that's what I wanted to do with Infinitum.
Were you a reader as a kid?
I was a reader of comic books.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I was a reader of comic books. Like yourself, I didn't really start hitting certain books until I had hit college. And I had come to New York. I was, born and raised in Tupelo, Mississippi, and that whole thing. Well, raised in Clarksville, but born in Tupelo. And when I came here is when I began to get exposed to, different texts, the autobiography of Malcolm X, things like that. And so I began to write. Like right now, in particular, I've moved from doing reading autobiographies to now I'm actually reading a lot of self-help books. It's so weird. It's so weird because I find that all of those different genres feed back to my work.
Now you're the writer and the illustrator.
Yes, it's all me. It's all me. And of course, with tremendous help from my editors.
Yes, I feel so fortunate to be able to do both. I don't know what it's like to work with a partner for the most part.
It's weird because on one end, I mean, I've in my recent past I've had the opportunity to work with certain writers, and I always end up coming back. Like Alex Simmons, our good friend, I've done stories with him, but it always comes back to me doing my own stories.
Yeah, that's gorgeous there. Look at that.
Thank you. And the ironic thing is, the image to the left was done early in the process. The image to the right was done in March of 2020, just before I finished.
Okay, now here's the thing. And this happened a lot with my book.
Mm-hmm.
All right, because it takes a year or more to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Do you find that you're substantially either better or that it has changed so much that you then have to go back and fix some of the early drawings?
Absolutely. In fact, I now accept it similar to how they make films. They do basic film shoots, but they schedule in reshoots.
Yeah.
So it's actually part of my process. I no longer am disturbed by it. I know that when I work, I'm going to finish a bulk of it, but then I'm gonna have to circle back. So my process is what I classify as an iterative art process. I'm constantly improving it. Or you know, in the Black community, we say put more stank on it.
Right.
So I'm always trying to have it. Like that image there to the right with the light. It's like first it was an image, but then in order to sell it so that it just doesn't look like a straight illustration, you have to have the light bloom on the leaves that hit the leaves, but it also has to hit his face.
Right.
Because your brain, right? Like that's not a photorealistic image. It's hyperreal, but it's not photoreal. But the way to sell it is you have to have photoreal effects in the shot. So that's where the light bloom comes in.
And see, I found that happened with me when I did New Kid. You know, it took about 13 months to draw. And by the time I was doing the last panels, the last pages, it was so much better than the first pages that I have to go back in like, oh, I draw hands much better now. Oh, I draw cars better because I did 1,000 cars. And then when I started to do class act, I had learned so much. I was like, I'm going to put in fades and, you know, I'm going to zoom in here and I'm going to like, you know, have this kind of like a mist. And I handed it in and they were like, oh, wait a minute. This doesn't even look like New Kid. And it was all the stuff that I had learned. And they're like, you can't do this. It doesn't look enough like New Kid. So I had to go back in and take out a lot of the learning that I had done to kind of emulate New Kid more.
Right.
And now that I'm working on book 3, I'm a better artist than I was with class act, but I still have to emulate so it looks the same.
There's a style. There's a style, you know. My next book is going back to Maddie's Rocket, which I had done, and I'm adding 50 pages, 40 to 50 new pages to the story. And, you know, I have to submit that to publishers next month. And it's just one of those things where you have to stay within that style.
Yeah.
You have to stay within that style.
Yeah. Now, if you could go up to anyone, any person in the world and hand them a copy of Infinitum, sign it to them and give it to them, who would you want to give it to?
Right now at this time, the person I would love and be honored to sign it and to give it to them would be, it has to just be one person. Can I do 2 people?
Yeah, you can do 2 people.
All right. One would be George Lucas, without question or doubt.
Wow. Okay.
Without question or doubt. Would you sign it? Thank you, sir. Obviously, without you, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. First thing. And the second one, Barack Obama.
Yeah.
That's who I would give it to. Absolutely.
That is not a bad choice.
Hey, man, it's because, you know, I've never really talked about this. There was a period during 2008, I had left teaching because I taught a lot. That's how I had to raise my kids. But when I went back to school to NYU, I went just as Obama had won his first year in office. I mean, won the election. And I went through a very, very low period career-wise. This is one thing I want people to know, that this stuff is not, it's not always about the up game, sometimes the low game too.
Yeah.
And but I took so much inspiration from that guy because he just showed you could do it. And so as a result of what he did, I actually willed myself to continue to develop Maddie's Rocket into animation. It started, and then it went into comics. And then I thought I was going to get a publishing deal, but I ended up self-publishing it. And then that led to Infinitum. So as I've said it a million times in interviews, it showed me the importance of finishing.
Yeah.
That's what Obama showed me.
Yeah.
The importance of following through. And trust me, I have a record for not always following through, but he showed me, if you want this thing, you must follow through.
And can I tell you, that puts you so much ahead, because, well, I'm going to ask you to stop sharing, because
okay, let me stop sharing that. Okay.
We got about 7 minutes left.
Okay.
And also, still, if there are any last questions, you can type it into the chat.
Okay.
But just to be able to finish something,
yes,
especially as an artist,
Mm-hmm.
because so many artists, you get the inspiration, and then, like you said, a third of the way through, you're like, what am I doing?
Mhm.
And then they redo it to do it like a lighter, quicker style. And then maybe they redo that to make it even quicker.
Yeah.
And then they're not inspired anymore. And then it ends up on the pile with their last 5 books. And I always tell my advice to writers and artists, I don't care how good it is, finish it. You can always go back and add to it and redo it.
Mhm.
But there are people going around with books that they've been working on for 30 years. And it's like, you have to finish it.
You have to. In fact, let me just speak for about 30 seconds on that.
Mm-hmm.
I had an entire career of not finishing stuff. So all the way from, of course, when I was in my earlier career as a editorial cartoonist for the Village Voice, as freelance editorial cartooning, I had work that was published in. I worked for Marvel Music. I have a completely finished Dr. Dre, fully painted graphic novel that has never been published from Marvel Comics. Hoping to get that out eventually one day. So a lot of unpublished work.
Yep.
So moving into the Afrofuturism Festival that's coming up next year, I just the quick announcement I'll make for this broadcast is the Schomburg Center Museum is going to be mounting my career retrospective show, which has appeared in 2016 and 2018. They're going to be remounting this show for the Afrofuturism Festival, Black Metropolis, which is all of those years of work that had never been seen.
Wow.
Which, ironically enough, because I'm a visual Afrofuturist and Afrofuturism, has kind of sort of been around. The word's only been in existence since like 94, but we used to call it Black sci-fi. The reality is that there's never been a safe space for visual Afrofuturism to exist. It's one thing you can have an Octavia or a Samuel Delaney or Stephen Barnes, but it's another thing to be doing that visually. That's a radical act. So now I have 30 plus years of all that work that's been shown in the gallery show. And the first time was at the New York University Gallatin Galleries. Then we moved to the Hammond's House Museum, and now it's going to be at the Schomburg.
Wow. Impressive.
Thank you.
All right. Shady, do you have a question? I know we have a few minutes left. Would you like to have a question or finishing thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. Something you said about how the visual Afrofuturist story is something that is still just pioneering, and that this book is part of that.
Sure.
And I wonder if you have thoughts about, people in general, perhaps the majority white audience that especially comes with science fiction or speculative fiction, when they're reading Afrofuturism, sometimes I think that they're able to just still transplant their whiteness onto the characters. But when you're seeing Black and brown skin in the image, it's undeniably Black, right? So I wonder if you have thoughts on that. And then I have another question for you, but go ahead. Go with that
right. One. Well, I can say with my experience with Infinitum, it was so undeniably Black, right? Yeah, there was really not much that could be done with it. It's just a Black book. Okay. It's a Black book with spaceships in it. And I have not had that issue with it. Now, it will be interesting to see if that translates into the film space. Without going into details, obviously, it's not a matter of Infinitum's, if it's going to be, will it be a streaming show? Obviously, it will. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So as a result, I've been working on storyboards for the first script that's been written. And so much stuff that I could get away with in the graphic novel space because it's just one person. I now have to, that stuff has to be channeled through so many different people. So I'm having to do a lot more concept design work. So so I hope that answers your question, but it's a little bit like that. It's a different process in a different genre. Medium, I should say.
Absolutely. And so we have about another minute. I'd love to hear a little bit about some of the research maybe that you've done to create this story, because it's such an epic story and it's very richly appointed, and it seems like it comes from a very deep well of research and creation on your part. So if you would have any insights on that and maybe some pointers for others who are looking to create such a story for themselves too.
Right. A lot of looking at text like the middle passage, which was just, you take from that, you take from military text. And I know you would talk about military texts that have prose text, but you also have to look at drawings. There are actual manuals that show ancient armor.
Now, are you talking in general, the middle passage, or Tom Feelings specifically the middle passage?
Yeah, the book, The Middle Passage.
Okay.
Yeah, I had to read parts of that. I had to read a lot of those texts to make sure that there was accuracy for the time period it was in. A lot of talking to people. I had to talk with family members to see what it was like. There's a sequence that takes place in the 60s to kind of make sure that was embedded and that it rang true. A lot of research on boring technical manuals, like, okay, what did the Enola Gay look like? That dropped the atomic bomb. It's never ending, because I went crazy and decided to do a story that lasted for 2 billion years. It was real nice when I got to the future part, because I could just make it up. Everything up to the contemporary period was very painful.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you both so much for being here and discussing this amazing piece of work. I'm so pleased that we get to have this in our store.
Thank you.
For those of you still watching, if you're curious about how to grab your copy, you can come right on down to Lost City Books on 18th Street or hop onto our website. It'll be right there. And if you would both like to offer any closing statements, anything where people can keep up with you and your work, where people can follow you, if you have social media that's available to the public.
Can I just interrupt for a second and say, because Infinitum is groundbreaking, and as we're talking about that, it's more important than ever to show the financial aspect of it, because publishing companies do look at dollars and cents. Is this making money? So it really matters more so than going out to buy another Harry Potter book who has already made their money. Not to throw shade at that, but when you're having the first like this, it's more important than ever.
It's important that readers support, and I am very, very much cognizant of that. But I'm also, I'll say this last thing about that aspect, and then I want to make one more announcement after this. I'm good for the money, baby. I'm good for the money. I'm good for the money. I'm going to give you a show. I'm going to put on a show. If I come to visits or signings, I'm going to put on a show. My signings are always off chain. I'm going to put it on a show. You're going to get a book that's vibrant and big.
He works hard for his money.
I work hard for my money. Final thing. So Black Metropolis is going to have a book with it. And Maddie's Rocket is coming. And I want, God willing, if everything works the way, all these things will happen during the Afrofuturism Festival.
Very cool.
And now,
where can we find you?
Dieselfunk.com, DIESELFUNK.com. Twitter, Dieselfunk. Instagram, Dieselfunk. Facebook, Dieselfunk. It's all Dieselfunk.
All right. And I am jerrycraft.com. Everything is Jerry Craft, plain and simple. I have New Kid, I have Class Act, I have a third one that I'm working on now. a new kid jigsaw puzzle coming out, a Jordan Banks sketchbook, which is kind of cool. Tim, you and I could use this when we were kids.
Wow.
And yeah. Oh, and I'm in an anthology now called Black Boy Joy, which is coming out.
Kwame and Balya's book.
Yes, Kwame Balya's book comes out August 3rd. Yep.
That is awesome.
Tim join me in real time.
No, this is an old drawing that I never showed him, but I had to show him.
Right.
Gary Kraft is the bomb. The bomb.
Absolutely. You're both the bomb. This is amazing. This is a great conversation. I am so honored that I got to be here with both of you. If you're ever in DC, definitely come and pay us a visit. All right.
I'm coming. Don't worry.
In the meantime, you both have a good night, and viewers, you too, you have a great night. Tune in next time.
You got it. Good night, everyone.
Take
Good luck,
care.
Tim. Thank you.
Bye-bye.